Great pleasure to be with you and a warm welcome from Bavaria. Well, why high-tech matters on the countryside. So talking about rural areas, about the countryside is quite often associated with trees. The area I'm talking about is also very forested. The Bavarian forest, that's the name of the region. But I think that countryside has also a lot of potential for high-tech and has a high-tech demand on its own. And that's what I would like to draw your attention on. So I will take you on a journey to rural Bavaria. So if you take the picture on the left, Bavaria is quite often associated with the Alps, with Munich as the main capital. But besides Bavaria, there's also something like Deggendorf in the middle, or on the right-hand side, Freyung. 70% of the population of Bavaria are living in a countryside. So the question is, if we go into this journey, if we arrive in Munich and go to the east, to this area at close to the Czech and Austrian border, there is Deggendorf located, where this journey will start in 1994. 1994, the Bavarian government discussed how to foster university development in Bavaria. And there was a huge discussion whether money should be given either to the established university in the cities like Munich, like Nuremberg, or on the other hand side, found new universities of applied sciences on the countryside. And they decided for the second option and established in Deggendorf, in Amberg-Weiden, in Ingolstadt, you maybe know the Odi city, but also in Lindau. So in a lot of small cities between 30 to 60,000 inhabitants, small universities of applied sciences, very hands-on approach of teaching, practical oriented, doing applied research. One was founded in Deggendorf on the Danube in the former area of the Iron Curtain. At this time, an area 5 years after the fall of the Iron Curtain, struggling from a lot of problems coming from the edge of Europe with a lot of subsidies into the center, the heart of Europe. And if we have a little bit about the numbers of this region, then we can see that there is a huge industry, secondary sector, almost 40%. But although it's rural, the primary sector, especially forestry and farming, has only 1% of the GDP. If we look into population, then I just summed up here some numbers. So if you take Munich with its 1.4 million inhabitants, the districts of Deggendorf, Regen, Freyung, Grafenau, which are the districts where I will focus on, are around roughly 100,000 inhabitants, so much smaller. And if we look at the population of the cities, Deggendorf, where the university got established in 1994, 35,000 inhabitants. Freyung, where my institute is located, 7,000 inhabitants. Teisnach, another location of a campus, even 3,000 inhabitants. And if we look on population density, I think Iceland, it can't be topped with 4 inhabitants per square kilometer. But if we look at the contrast between Munich and even Reykjavik, and then Deggendorf or Freyung, these rural districts of Bavaria, there are huge differences with regard to population distribution, density, etc. So let's start in 1994. What happened? The state established a university that was expected to hold roughly 1,000 to 1,500 students. And the university started over the first 4 years with 4 degree programs, which mainly covered the regional focus of local industries. It was the civil and construction industry, it was electrical engineering and mechanical engineering. Here's a lot of industrial suppliers in the area, automotive suppliers, a lot of production and automation industry, and then business administration, because that's something that every company, every business could need. What happened was during a period of roughly 10 years, the extension of this initial program that matched quite well the local demand, the established industry, the development into new domains. So for instance, from civil engineering evolved environmental engineering, a new study program, business administration focused on business informatics, new programs in electrical engineering on media technology and computer science, and also mechanical engineering evolved a new study program in mechatronics and robotics. And the consequence was there was an evaluation of this process, that within a time period of 10 years from 2000 to 2010, 40 spin-offs and startups evolved from these study programs from professors and established over 400 new workplaces only in the city of Deggendorf. So not in the district, but only in the city of Deggendorf. So this story of a university becoming a nucleus, a hub for development in the rural area, became a real issue and took further drive. And if we look into current numbers, Deggendorf was planned to host 1,500 students. Currently, this winter semester, we achieved 8,300 students that we have currently on campus. So it's almost 1/4 of the city that is a student population coming in from larger area. But at the moment also, we are the most international university in Bavaria. We have an international intake of 30% almost. And the growth went further on, especially to more high-tech segments. So for instance, we established 3 years ago a bachelor degree in artificial intelligence. We have a degree in cybersecurity. We went into the health domain, health sciences, which is a big issue in our area. So with regard to this perspective, the university became not only a support instrument of the region, but it became a driver for development inside an area. And also from these study programs, as I just pointed them out, this is the full list of undergraduate programs that we are often offering currently in the region. The university became a driver for new topics where students, professors, scientists also started to spin off from these domains. And a lot of new companies evolved and startups evolved already from these new study programs. But what I would like to focus on in my talk is now the further and next step. Because 2009, the Bavarian government killed a huge prestigious project in Munich, which was the establishment of a Transrapid, a high-speed train that should connect the airport with the city of Munich. You may know the Transrapid because it's already operational at Shanghai airport. And it's a magnetic-driven train. And killing this project meant there was a 900 million budget available for technology program that the government at this time, it was again before election, wanted to spend on projects in the technology domain. And again, the question arises, should we go into the centers? Which type of technologies should we focus? And our president went out into the countryside to ask the neighboring district where there is a focus in the region we might follow and cover on the university. And 2 district officers here from Freyung-Grafenau, my district, close to the Czech border, and from Regen offered that it's quite nice that the university is also thinking about the neighboring rural districts, but wouldn't it be better to establish new success stories in the rural countryside instead of then fostering again this existing hub and center in Deggendorf itself? And this was the birth of a concept of regionalization of R&D with the establishment of a technology campus in Teisnach and another technology campus in Freyung. Both of them are R&D research centers that got sponsored by the university, where we received a 5 million euro grant for a 5-year period to build up the research topics, build up a research community, while the municipalities themselves contributed through building infrastructure they provided for us as a university. So it was some kind of a joint venture between us as a university and the municipalities, financed by the state of Bavaria. When I then in 2009 entered the campus, I became professor then in this year. I went to a meeting in Munich. And there they told me in 2009, after we have started operation, I was at a meeting with presidents of other universities, and they asked me, where are you coming from? And I said, yeah, from Deggendorf. And they said, you're the crazy guys who are starting a research center in a city with less than 10,000 inhabitants. I think this is not good invested money, fortunately only for 5 years, because then it will be gone. Story went in a different way because the model became successful. We were intended to have 10 researchers at each of these campuses after a 5-year period. And looking now into numbers, Teisnach, a research center focused on optical technology, holds currently something like 25 researchers, and my institute in Freyung holds 40 researchers after a 10-year period, which means the project was far more successful and also motivated a lot of neighboring regions, a lot of neighboring districts also to ask for this kind of regional support. And this is the research ecosystem that developed. So here you can see, here is Munich around this area. This is Lower Bavaria, the countryside east of Munich between Czech Republic and Austria. And this is the ecosystem of R&D centers that got established during the past 12 years. So something like an outsider from the countryside, having almost no capacities in R&D. If I take this whole region of Lower Bavaria on the European R&D maps, it's always gray, which means no numbers, no R&D spending, or very low R&D spending, below 0.1% of the GDP, became the location of a lot of R&D centers, decentralized in the rural areas, and all of them here are in cities with less than 10,000 inhabitants. So what are these centers focusing on? There are two different approaches. On the one hand side, if you take this center in Teisnach, the Regen area, Bavarian forest, mountainous, a lot of forest, was focused on glass from a historical perspective and became during the past 50 years a location for optical technologies. So for instance, Rodenstock, key optics, a lot of specialized manufacturers of high precision optics are located in this area, which meant that we had here in this location a focus on optical technologies. So again, in this case, R&D followed the local focus to support industries and develop through R&D new options for these industries to improve. On the other hand side, if you go for my institute, which is located in Freyung, the neighboring district, there was no specific focus in the area, which meant we went for something that everybody could use, but is also high tech, and we went for computer science with an emphasis on embedded systems and geomatics, which is my domain. And the idea behind it was already a little bit before the idea of Industry 4.0 came up, something like 4 to 5 years, the idea that computer science could be used for almost any type of industry and business. And then we have established, following this pattern, a lot of new research centers. And the idea behind each of these centers is what the European Union always calls this triple helix approach in regional development or in technology-driven developments, mainly focusing on urban centers to combine the ideas and potentials of the public sector, municipality, city, the industry and R&D, research and development, and combine them in this triple helix where they will develop a lot of synergies. But in the past, this was mainly an approach driven in cities, in urban centers. We have this approach in Regensburg, also Munich, but it was never tested in the rural area. What are we now doing to support such a region, and where are these high-tech topics? I've picked out some examples where we did projects at my institute that follow partially or fully this triple helix approach. So for instance, in the Bavarian forest, I think one of the first large fleet approaches, tests were run with electric vehicles, where BMW for the first time tested outside a metropolitan area electric vehicles and its potentials for mobility in the rural countryside. So there was something like Munich, there was Hamburg, there was Shanghai, there was New York, and there was the Bavarian forest. And we supported as a university BMW to roll out a fleet of electric minis to do a test run on how electromobility might change mobility in a rural area. And high electromobility, although the ranges were quite limited, 150 kilometers with this electric mini, whether these ranges fit into the mobility patterns of a rural area. A second project, also in the mobility domain, we did together with Deutsche Bahn, where Deutsche Bahn outside Hamburg started for the first time to operate a fully autonomous bus in Bad Birnbach, which is a small spa village in Lower Bavaria, where we supported Deutsche Bahn in rolling out and analyzing especially the technical data of this equipment. But we all these two projects were always then this combination in a triple helix where university R&D, companies and municipalities closely cooperate to further develop the technology-driven visions and implement them in a rural countryside. But we are also closely cooperating with local industries. So for instance, one example of Thomas Krenn. Thomas Krenn is a hardware manufacturer for service systems located in Freyung. Till 2012, they didn't have any R&D department. They just had a development and they are manufacturing, they're taking hardware components and integrating them in the server housing, the server coverage. There was in Thomas Krenn is to know this, is the largest German-owned server manufacturer. The third largest in Germany, the largest is Dell, and the second largest is HP, so American companies. And Thomas Krenn is the number 3, but the largest German one that didn't have any R&D. And there was then an approach by the German government to foster the development of hardware competences in Germany. And Thomas Krenn decided to develop an own new product line with a hot fluid computing approach, which means to substitute the air cooling by fluid cooling in the server system. And what we set up with Thomas Krenn was a joint approach where Thomas Krenn provided its competences in manufacturing server system, while we contributed as an institute with our competences in R&D, sensors, measurements, and developed a completely new hardware configuration, including water cooling measurements to use regular hardware from Intel, etc., but applied then to this concept of fluid, of water cooled system. And this server system became now part of the DLR research high performance computing infrastructure of the German Center for Aerospace and Research. So we supported in this way a company, a local company, at this time 150 employees, in building up own R&D competences, and they are still a research partner of my institute. We also support museums and cultural institutions in the region by establishing new technology in the museum. Currently, we are working on a spin-off, which is about an audio storytelling platform that is openly accessible for any museum or cultural institution to tell their stories. But we are also operating on an international level, together here with the German Center for Aerospace Research, with Technical University Munich, with the government of Colombia and the city government of Medellin, where it's about developing low-cost hardware infrastructure to protect and warn population in these informal settlements on the outskirts of Medellin, and in the future also in other cities, against landslides and natural hazards. So we are also operating on an international level. What is the key? How are we doing this? The story behind it. As you can see here, this is a matrix of our competences we have on the institute. And what we provide as an institute is here the core competence in R&D on a technology basis. So there are topics like artificial intelligence, high performance computing, software-defined radio, or modeling, where we have competences at our institute. And we support, on the other hand side, in the application domains, actors from the region, from mobility, from energy, also from care technologies, in building up new products, in doing R&D, how to integrate digital technologies in their products, in their businesses. So key of our capacity and of our doing is applied research in supporting local and national and international companies in integrating digital technologies. How do we finance this? So the initial financing of 5 million euros for a 5-year period is over. And we established that we receive a basic funding that almost covers 20% of our institutional expenses. So it's about infrastructure, it's about 2 people working at the institute, while we finance the rest from on the one hand side, industry contracts where we receive directly industry money for contractual R&D, but on the other hand side, also together with industry or with other research partners, applying for R&D grants. So during the past year, we supported local companies in getting R&D grants at an amount of something like 1 to 3 billion euros per year on annual money inflow from Bavarian, national German or European research money, where before this time, this number was close to zero. What we are also doing is that we finance us mainly through projects at a national or international level. So we became a national international research institution, and only a small part, less than 1/3 of our budget, stems from projects with local industries. So now the question might arise, why do we need then this infrastructure, and why in the countryside? If we would not do these projects at a national or international level, we wouldn't have the competences to support, on the other hand side, through these competences, our regional partners that had even very small budgets. So there we have projects between 1,000 and 10,000 euros at the smallest, but we can afford to do these projects because we can finance our stuff and the competences that this stuff holds from huge projects we are doing with national industries such as Deutsche Bahn, German Railroad, BMW, Audi, German Center for Aerospace Research, to hold these capacities in the region and to have these capacities available to support through the knowledge our local partners and local industries. At the end, I would like to give you also maybe a short impression where I was also for a long time in touch with Magdalena, who is in your team in Iceland. It was one activity that came up some years ago, 6 years ago, when a young pupil, age 15, approached the local regional development agency and told them, hey, I'm interested to link with other people in computer science, in software development. I have developed an app, and this app is currently the number 8 or 9 in the German Google ranking of downloaded apps. So really an outstanding pupil doing already business with his app. It was something like a game, a quiz. Do you know your YouTuber? So he was presenting just the images of a YouTuber and you were able to click whether you know him and click the right name, and to gain then points and battle with your friends who knows best all the famous YouTubers. And he became number 8 or 9 in this year in the German Google App Store for Google Android. And the question was now for the Regional Development Authority, how to link this brave boy with all the established CEOs of local companies. Always these white collar and tie events were not the right setting to integrate such a young boy. And the idea came up, hey, let's organize a hackathon, because he told us, I have some friends, they are a little bit older, but they are also doing app programming, software development. So we said, okay, at our institute, let's organize a hackathon, a joint event of local industries, financing all the stuff, the regional development, bringing in its capacities to organize such an event. And from our side, the competence and the background that we know how software development is done. Well, long story short, we thought this was a quite funny local activity when half a year later, I got a call from Berlin, Federal German Ministry for Rural Spaces, Agriculture, Forestry, etc. And they told me, well, we are organizing something in Berlin, Green Week, 20,000 visitors at a big fair and conference. We have seen about your hackathon, and for us, it's impossible to bring these two things together. Hackathon, which is a real urban event, and on the other hand side, Freiung, which was for them from a Berlin perspective, something like on another planet. Main focus of the ministry, and they invited the district officer and me to talk about the hackathon and what came out. And we explained to them what the concept behind this and what we make differently in contrast to the hackathons in the urban setting. And what was quite important for us is we are not a thematic hackathon. So the core idea was to bring together the local development or regional development community. So we had no topic and we had no challenge, like most urban hackathons, which are driven by huge companies asking for funding, providing prize money for most successful teams. And what we did during the past years was building up a community of 200 to 250 developers coming from the region, coming also stemming from the region, but coming from Munich, where they are working, coming back to their roots in the region and participating in this hackathon event, which takes place twice per year, one in Deggendorf, one in Freyung. We have over 100 participants at the moment for each event. We have a range of participants from student teams to industrial enterprises. And we have already several startups that had their origin where the teams met at the hackathon, found together. So for us, this hackathon became also a very important event to link our institute into the local community. Vice versa, we as a university tried to provide a benefit to the local community by providing capacity, the knowledge, the serious background of not only having some fancy marketing event as a hackathon, but something that is grounded in technology and development. So if we look at the storyline where we started in 1994 with the foundation of the university, we went up now that the university is operating in 2022, 13 of these technology campuses. We are operating in total 15 local campuses, where 13 are research institutes and 3 of them are in teaching. What is the next stage and what in parallel happened was the foundation of business incubators in the cities that hosted all these spin-off startups that developed around us. And what we are currently working on, and this is a big issue, what we are thinking about is how to conceptualize all these approaches and instruments, and how is it possible to transfer also these learnings that we had from the past to other regions inside Bavaria, inside Germany. But it would be also a great pleasure to collaborate with you to see how we can bring technology development, high tech into the countryside. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Wolfgang. This is almost like a fairy tale. It is so interesting to hear. We